The old Blackwood mansion had been abandoned for 30 years, but tonight, Sarah and her friends decided to break the silence. The locals warned them about the mansion, how people who entered at 3 a.m. were never seen again, how the walls themselves were alive with trapped souls. But Sarah's YouTube channel needed content, and ghost hunting videos were trending. As they pushed open the heavy oak door at exactly 3:01 a.m., a gust of cold air hit their faces like a warning. The smell of decay and something else, something sweet and sickening, filled their nostrils. "Did you guys hear that?" whispered Jake, his camera shaking in his hands. They all froze. A faint whispering seemed to be coming from the walls themselves. At first, it sounded like wind through broken windows, but as they listened closer, they could make out words. Sarah pressed her ear against the peeling wallpaper and immediately jerked back. The whispers weren't random. They were calling her name, over and over again. "Sarah, Sarah, come closer, Sarah." The voices were layered, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all speaking in unison. Men, women, children, their voices creating a haunting chorus that seemed to vibrate through the very foundation of the house. As they moved deeper into the mansion, the whispers grew louder and more insistent. The beam of their flashlight revealed portraits hanging on the walls, dozens of them, all in ornate gold frames. But something was wrong. The eyes in every painting were following them, tracking their movement across the room. And worse, the faces were slowly changing, morphing to look like theirs. "We need to leave now," said Emma, backing toward the door, her voice trembling. But when they turned around, the door was gone. Where the entrance had been, there was now just another wall covered in portraits. And in the newest frame, still wet with paint, was a picture of the four of them standing exactly where they were now, their faces frozen in expressions of pure terror. The whispers became screams, agonized cries of people who had been trapped for decades. Sarah looked at her hands and watched in horror as her skin began to fade, becoming translucent like watercolor paint running down canvas. The sensation was cold, like ice water flowing through her veins. "The mansion collects souls," whispered a voice right next to her ear, though no one was there. "It paints them into portraits, traps them forever in frames of gold and misery." One by one, they began to fade. Jake tried to run, but his legs moved like he was walking through thick mud. Emma screamed, but the sound became distorted, like it was coming from far underwater. Their bodies became see-through, their essence being pulled toward the walls. Sarah felt herself being compressed, flattened, her three-dimensional existence being forced into a two-dimensional prison. The last thing she saw was her own face appearing in an empty frame, mouth open in an eternal scream that would soon join the chorus of whispers. Jake's camera fell to the floor, still recording. It captured their final moments as they became part of the mansion's collection. 4 new portraits hanging on the wall, their painted eyes moving to watch the camera with desperate, pleading expressions. The mansion was always hungry for new portraits, and now it had 4 fresh souls to whisper secrets to the next group of visitors, brave enough, or foolish enough, to enter at 3 a.m. The whispers never stopped. They never would.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out, so subscribe now before the next nightmare finds you. When Alex entered the Ravencroft Mansion's infamous mirror room at 3 a.m., he thought he was prepared for anything. He'd done dozens of urban exploration videos, visited abandoned hospitals, haunted schools, even spent a night in a cemetery.
but nothing had prepared him for what waited in room 213 of the Ravencroft mansion. The room contained 13 antique mirrors, each one different in size and style, but all sharing one terrifying trait. They supposedly trapped the soul of anyone who looked into them at the witching hour. Local legend claimed that the mirrors were cursed by the mansion's previous owner, a wealthy collector of occult artifacts, who had disappeared mysteriously in 1967. "This is stupid," he muttered to his livestream audience, trying to sound braver than he felt. "They're just mirrors. Probably worth more than my car, but still just mirrors." His phone showed 847 viewers watching live, the chat scrolling with messages of encouragement and warnings. Some viewers begged him to leave, while others dared him to look into all 13 mirrors. But as he moved his phone's light across the room, something made his blood freeze. His reflection in the first mirror was smiling, even though he wasn't. The smile was wide, unnatural, stretching from ear to ear in a way that human mouths shouldn't be able to move. In the second mirror, his reflection was pointing at something behind him. Alex spun around. Nothing there but empty air and shadows. When he turned back to the mirror, his reflection was shaking its head disapprovingly, as if scolding him for not understanding some crucial message. By the third mirror, his reflection wasn't moving at all, just staring at him with black, hollow eyes that seemed to bore into his soul. The reflection's mouth was moving, speaking words that Alex couldn't hear but somehow understood. "You shouldn't have come here." "Guys, are you seeing this?" he whispered to his camera, but his hands were shaking so badly the image was blurred. The chat was going crazy, viewers confirming they could see the strange reflections, some screaming at him to run, others accusing him of using special effects. That's when he noticed it. In each mirror, his reflection looked different. The fourth mirror showed him as an old man, wrinkled and gray. The fifth mirror showed him as a child, tears of blood streaming down his face. The sixth mirror reflected him with his mouth sewn shut with thick black thread. The seventh mirror showed him screaming silently, his hands pressed against the glass as if trying to break free. As he moved from mirror to mirror, Alex felt pieces of himself being left behind. Each reflection seemed to take something from him, his warmth, his memories, his very essence. He was becoming hollow, empty, like a shell of his former self. The 12th mirror showed him exactly as he was, but translucent, fading away like a ghost. But the 13th mirror was empty. Alex looked down at his hands and saw they were becoming transparent. He was fading away, being pulled into the mirrors one piece at a time. His reflection in the first mirror waved goodbye with that same unnatural smile as Alex felt himself being torn apart and scattered across all 13 mirrors. The livestream continued for another hour, showing an empty room with 13 mirrors reflecting nothing. But viewers swore they could see someone trapped inside each one, banging on the glass from the inside, mouth open in silent screams for help. Alex was never found. His car was discovered in the mansion's driveway the next morning, keys still in the ignition, but he had vanished completely. But sometimes at 3 a.m., people report seeing a young man in the mirrors of room 213, desperately trying to warn others to run before they too become part of the collection. The mirrors are hungry. They always will be.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out. So subscribe now before the next nightmare finds you.
The Ashworth Mansion's third floor had been sealed for decades, but Maya managed to pry open the door to what locals called the children's playroom. The wooden boards nailed across the entrance had rotted with age, and Maya's crowbar made quick work of what remained. Inside, dusty toys lay scattered across the floor like the remnants of an interrupted tea party, and child-sized handprints covered the walls in what looked suspiciously like dried blood. Maya had researched the mansion's history extensively. In 1954, 5 children had been playing hide-and-seek in this very room when a fire broke out on the lower floors. The adults evacuated, assuming all the children were outside playing. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. The children had hidden so well that no one could find them, and they died of smoke inhalation while crouched in their hiding spots, still waiting for someone to discover them. The story goes, Maya explained to her camera, adjusting the night vision setting, that the 5 children died in this room during a game of hide-and-seek. Local legends say they're still playing, still waiting for their turn to be found. As soon as she spoke those words, a music box began to play somewhere in the darkness. The haunting melody of Ring Around the Rosie echoed through the room, the tune distorted and slowed down, creating an atmosphere of dread that made Maya's skin crawl. The melody seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Maya followed the sound, her flashlight beam dancing across old rocking horses with missing eyes, porcelain dolls with cracked faces, and wooden blocks spelling out words that changed when she wasn't looking at them directly. "Hello?" she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is someone there?" A child's giggle answered from behind her, high-pitched, innocent, but somehow wrong. Then another giggle from her left, and another from somewhere above her head. Soon, the room filled with the sound of children laughing and running, though Maya could see no one. The temperature in the room began to drop rapidly. Maya's breath came out in visible puffs, and frost started forming on the windows. The handprints on the walls seemed to multiply, spreading like a disease across every surface. "Let's play hide and seek," a little girl's voice sang out cheerfully from somewhere near the ceiling. "You can be it this time." As soon as she spoke those words, Maya's flashlight flickered and died, plunging the room into complete darkness. In the blackness, she heard small footsteps circling her, not one child, but several, running in a pattern around her like she was the center of some twisted ritual. Cold, tiny hands began tugging at her clothes, pulling her deeper into the room. The hands felt real, solid, warm, alive. But when Maya tried to grab them, she grasped only empty air. "You're it!" the children's voices chanted in unison, their innocent words carrying an undertone of menace. "Close your eyes and count to 10. Maya tried to run toward where she remembered the door being, but invisible hands held her in place with surprising strength. Her feet felt glued to the floor, and no matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't move. She was forced to close her eyes and count. 1, 2, 3. With each number, she felt the children moving around her, hiding in places that shouldn't exist in a room this size. 4, 5, 6. The giggling grew more excited, more frenzied. Maya felt small fingers touching her face, playing with her hair, whispering secrets in languages she didn't understand. 7, 8, 9. When she reached 10 and opened her eyes, she was no longer in the playroom. She was in a child's bedroom, wearing a white nightgown that belonged to another era. The room was decorated with toys from the 1950s, and sunlight streamed through windows that showed a view of the mansion's grounds as they had been 70 years ago. Maya looked in the mirror across the room and saw not herself, but a little girl with hollow, dead eyes and a sad smile. She was 7 years old again, but something was terribly wrong. Her reflection's mouth moved without sound. "Now you can play with us forever." The children had found their 6th playmate, and the game would never end. Maya's camera was found the next morning by police, still recording an empty playroom. But if you listen carefully to the footage with headphones, you can hear 6 children laughing and playing in the darkness, forever trapped in their eternal game.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out. So subscribe now before the next nightmare finds you.
The basement of Thornfield Mansion was where it all started, where the original owner, Marcus Thornfield, had conducted his dark rituals in 1892. Tom knew the stories, but he didn't believe them. That was his first mistake. His second mistake was going alone. Tom was a skeptic, a debunker of paranormal claims. His YouTube channel specialized in exposing fake ghost videos and explaining away supernatural phenomena with science and logic. The Thornfield Mansion was supposed to be his masterpiece, a complete debunking of one of the most haunted locations in the state. Descending the creaking wooden stairs at 3 a.m., Tom's flashlight revealed strange symbols carved into the stone walls. The symbols looked ancient, predating any known civilization, yet somehow familiar, as if they were burned into the collective human unconscious. In the center of the basement sat a pentagram etched into the floor with 5 candles positioned at each point. They weren't lit, but somehow they cast shadows that moved independently of any light source. Legend says that Marcus Thornfield tried to summon something from the other side, Tom narrated to his camera, his voice echoing off the stone walls. He was obsessed with contacting his dead wife, Maria, who had died in childbirth. The story goes that he succeeded in opening a portal, but whatever came through was nothing like what he expected. The basement felt wrong in ways Tom couldn't explain scientifically. The air was thick, almost viscous, like breathing through syrup. The temperature readings on his equipment showed normal levels, but his body felt like it was freezing and burning simultaneously. As Tom stepped into the pentagram to prove it was harmless, the temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant. His breath came out in visible puffs, and frost began forming on the walls in patterns that looked almost like writing in an unknown language. The candles ignited by themselves. Okay, that's not normal, Tom stammered. But he didn't leave. He couldn't leave. Something was compelling him to stay in the center of the pentagram, an invisible force that felt like hands on his shoulders, gently but firmly keeping him in place. The symbols on the walls began to glow with an eerie red light that hurt to look at directly. A low humming filled the air, getting louder and more menacing by the second. The sound seemed to come from beneath the floor, as if something massive was stirring in the earth below the mansion's foundation. Tom tried to move, but his feet felt glued to the floor. The humming grew louder, and he realized it wasn't just sound, it was a voice, speaking in a language that predated human speech. Somehow, despite not understanding the words, Tom knew exactly what it was saying. Welcome home. That's when he saw it. A shadow that wasn't his own. It was tall, impossibly tall, with long clawed fingers reaching toward him from the stone wall. The shadow moved independently, growing larger and more solid with each passing moment, as if something from another dimension was pushing through reality itself. Welcome back, Marcus, a voice whispered from everywhere and nowhere at once. The voice was neither male nor female, neither human nor animal, but something else entirely. Something that had never been mortal. Tom looked down and saw his own hands changing, aging rapidly. His skin became wrinkled and spotted with age, his fingers elongating into claw-like appendages. His clothes transformed into an old-fashioned suit from the 1800s, with a pocket watch and vest. He caught his reflection in his camera screen and saw not his own face, but that of a man from the Victorian era with wild eyes and a sinister smile. The man in the reflection mouthed words that Tom felt compelled to speak. The ritual is complete. The debt is paid. The door is open. Tom realized with growing horror that Marcus Thornfield hadn't died in 1892. he had made a deal. Every 130 years, he would return, possessing a new body to continue his work. Tom was just the latest in a long line of unwilling hosts. The ritual was complete. Marcus Thornfield had found a new body to inhabit, and Tom's soul was being dragged into the darkness from which Marcus had finally escaped. The camera kept recording as the figure that was no longer Tom blew out the candles one by one, and in the final moments before the screen went black, viewers could see him carving a new symbol into the wall, a symbol that looked suspiciously like Tom's name, marking his soul as claimed. The basement fell silent, but the evil had been reborn, and it was hungry for the next foolish soul who dared to enter its domain at 3 a.m. Marcus Thornfield was patient. He had all the time in the world to wait for his next victim. After all, the door was open now, and it would never close again.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out. So subscribe now before the next nightmare finds you.